Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com. Today we're going to make a moist and flavorful pumpkin cake covered with a shiny chocolate glaze. So first, preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, that's 180 degrees Celsius, and you will need a 10-inch, that's 25 centimeter bundt pan, which is really a fancy tube pan with decorative sides. And either spray it with one of those nonstick cooking sprays, or you could lightly butter it. If you are going to butter it, what I would do is have either melted or very soft butter and a pastry brush, and then you could just brush the sides, because you want to make sure when you're greasing your pan that you get in all those little grooves in the bundt pan. Now, if you don't have like the light colored bundt pan, you have like a dark colored pan like this one, you need to reduce your oven temperature by 25 degrees. So that means set your oven at 325 degrees Fahrenheit or 160 degrees Celsius. So what we're going to do is, if you have a stand mixer like this, use a paddle attachment, but you could just do it by hand or with an electric mixer, because we don't need to get that much beaten air into this batter. We're using oil, which really makes the cake wonderfully moist. So the first thing we need to do is put 4 large eggs, and have those at room temperature in your mixing bowl, along with 1 cup, 240 milliliters of oil, and this is a flavorless oil. Now there's a lot of choices. You could use like a corn oil, vegetable oil, canola, safflower, or even a light olive oil. And then you also need 1 3/4 cups, 350 grams of granulated white sugar, and 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. Now, we're just going to beat this a couple minutes, just until everything's combined together. Okay, and then to that, we're going to add 1 15-ounce can, which is 425 grams, of pumpkin puree, pure pumpkin. That's pumpkin without any spices added, just the pumpkin. Now, if you want to make your own, you will need about 2 cups of pumpkin puree. And there's on the site under the pumpkin cake, I do have in the head note how to do it with pumpkins. But use those small like pumpkins, not those big ones that you use for jack-o'-lantern. Use the small pumpkins for that. So you will need 2 cups, 480 milliliters. So we're just going to add that. And we're just going to mix that in. Okay, simple enough. And then we need to mix our dry ingredients together. So I have in here 2 cups, that's 260 grams of white all-purpose flour. And then to that add 1 cup of unprocessed wheat bran. Wheat bran is the outer shell, the outer layer of the wheat kernel. And it has a real nice, mild, earthy flavor. And it's really very light and fluffy, so it really gives a nice texture to the pumpkin cake. And then to that we need 2 teaspoons of baking powder, a teaspoon of baking soda, and just a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I like to use a kosher salt, and 3/4 of a teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and then I have a 1/4 teaspoon of ground ginger and 1/8 teaspoon of ground cloves. And I'm just going to whisk that together. What's nice about this cake when you use oil is it keeps the cake really nice and moist for days. And even if you want to keep it in the refrigerator, it'll be soft. Sometimes with a butter cake, the butter cake kind of hardens in the fridge, but that's not the way it is when you use oil. Okay, so all I'm going to do is just put that in there and mix it in. Now start your mixer on low speed because you don't want that flour coming up in your face. Okay, and that's it. So as you can see, you could do this by hand very easily. So all that's left to do is you can add 1 cup, about 240 milliliters. You could add chopped nuts, walnuts, pecans, almonds, or what I'm going to do, kind of take the theme of because we're putting a chocolate glaze on the top, so I'm going to put some chocolate in the batter. I'm putting 1 cup of mini chocolate chips. If you use the mini ones, you don't have to worry about them sinking to the bottom of the pan, like sometimes if you use the large chocolate chips. So if you like the combination of chocolate and pumpkin, you want to use those chocolate chips. So that's good. So now just pour your batter into your pan as evenly as possible. The good part about a bun pan, you use it for cakes that are quite heavy. The batters are quite heavy because it has that inner core which conducts the heat into the center of the cake. So you don't have to worry about the center not cooking as much as the outside. So we're going to put this in the oven between 50 to 60 minutes, or just until, if you insert a toothpick into the center of the cake, it'll come out clean. Okay, our pumpkin bun cake is now ready. As you can see, it's risen and it will have the cracks. That's normal. And when you put a toothpick to the center, it will come out clean. So I'm just going to let this cool for about 10 minutes and then we'll take it out of the pan. So to take your pumpkin cake out of the pan, first just take a knife or a spatula and just go around to see if it is sticking to the sides of the pan. Doesn't look like it is. So then put your oven mitts on because it's still quite hot. Just put a larger cookie sheet or rack over top and flip it out of the way. And then just take the sides and hopefully it should slip right off. There we go. So now we have to let this pumpkin cake cool completely before we put the chocolate glaze on top. That'll take 1 to 2 hours. So now we're going to start the shiny chocolate glaze. You will need a saucepan of simmering water and a heat-proof bowl, one that will fit easily, nice and snugly over the top of the saucepan. So you need 6 ounces, about 180 grams of semi-sweet chocolate, and chop that into fairly small pieces. And to that add 1/4 cup, that's 57 grams of butter, and just have it in small pieces here because then it will melt faster. And 2 tablespoons of light corn syrup. And it's the corn syrup that's going to keep this glaze nice and soft. Normally, when you make a chocolate topping, if you don't put corn syrup in it, it will harden, especially if you put it in the refrigerator. But if you put a little corn syrup, it just keeps it nice and soft. So then we're just going to put it over the simmering water and just melt it till everything's all nice and smooth. Okay, our chocolate and our butter is all melted. So, there we go. I'm just going to remove from the heat. Now, if you like, you don't have to do this. I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of brandy, or like cognac, or you can do rum. If you want to leave it out, you can. Or you could also add a little bit of vanilla extract if you'd like. And just stir that in. Now what we're going to do is let this cool. It depends, maybe 15 minutes or so, because I want it to cool and I want it to thicken up a little. Because if I tried to use it now, it's quite thin. And then it would just really run over the cake too much. So what I'm going to do is just let it thicken up. Our chocolate glaze is now of pouring consistency. This is what you're looking for. Just a little thicker than when it's just melted. So I'm just going to pour this into a measuring cup with a spout so I can see what I'm doing when I'm pouring it over the bundt cake. So what you want to do is put your pumpkin cake on a serving plate, or I've got it on a cake pedestal, and then have cut about 4 sheets of, I'm using wax paper here, you could use parchment paper, and then just put it around the outside of your cake platter and then place your cake over top. And that way, if the glaze does pour over and go down onto the platter, we can neaten it up by just pulling out the wax paper after we're done. So all we're going to do is just slowly pour this over the cake, and we're just going to let it run down the sides. Kind of give it a rustic look, so doesn't have to be perfect. See, this is about the consistency you're looking for the glaze. You pour it on and it just slowly goes down over the cake, sides of the cake. And just kind of move it around evenly. Do it. As you can see, it's really nice and shiny. So pretty. Sure you get all that chocolate glaze out of there. Don't want to waste any. And then once it drips down, I'll just show you. It hasn't completely, I would normally like to leave it a little longer, but I'll just take one out. So all you have to do is gently pull out, and then your serving plate is nice and clean. So what I like to do with this cake, some cakes are better if you let them sit overnight. You could eat this the same day as you make it, but I find overnight it kind of, all the flavors can soften and mingle. So you can store this either in the fridge or at room temperature for several days. So until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com.